Welcome to Project Pack 23. My name is Molly.
Hi, my name is Martha.
Oh my goodness, this is coming along quite nicely, Martha. I'm pretty excited.
Filling in beautifully.
As you all have probably figured out by now, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Zentangle Method this year, and our project packs are part of that celebration. And this Project Pack 23 is all about the birth of Zentangle.
Yeah, it's really about honoring that moment that the ideas started coming together for the Zentangle Method.
Yes.
It's really exciting.
So special. And you can learn all about that in our introductory video, which we highly recommend watching before this. And this video is, Martha, what's the word?
Cumulative.
Thank you. That's a tough one. Which means the videos go in order. So if you're joining us for the first time now, we recommend going back to the beginning and starting there. We're using the materials in our Project Pack 23 envelopes.
Yes.
Or pouches.
Supplies. Yeah.
Yep. But if you don't have those materials, we welcome you to find what you do have at home and kind of figure it out otherwise. So there's lots of options here.
Well, before we get started, we think it's a good idea to kind of everybody get a little grounded and maybe take a moment for some gratitude for this time that we're spending together and for these beautiful materials and the opportunity to reflect on all that there is to be grateful for.
I couldn't agree more. Always a nice deep breath is welcomed, and we encourage you to do that at any point during your practice. What's great about these videos is that they are videos, so you can watch them through as many times as you need to and pause the tape as you also may need to at certain times. So we are working with the materials that were in the pouch, as we said, 3 different size black pens, and then a graphite pencil and white charcoal pencil. So, Martha, I'm going to be working with a tangle called Fife today, which is sort of like an evolution of the Tangle bales, right?
Yes. A little more freeform.
Yeah. What did you call it this morning?
This is freeform Fife.
Freeform Fife. And what's fun about where we're at now is we have some tangles down on our template, and Martha had put this really sort of bold combination with the puppy hugs and the frondus, and then Julie came in with these textures, and I'm going to come in with, I guess, like sort of like a grid tangle.
Yeah, but a grid with no pre-drawn grid.
Right, sort of seeds that we put down, dot seeds. And what we're trying to get you to do with these compositions is sort of build it slowly. So we're putting the tangles in multiple locations, and we're attaching them to previously drawn tangles and playing around with it. And your template and your string is different than mine, so you're going to have to kind of locate a place to work that might be different than where I'm working. So I am going to play with Fife sort of like attaching itself to a little bit of the border and then sort of drifting into the center. It's kind of breaking the rules, and it's going to break up our composition a little bit. So we're going to play back and forth with this idea of honoring the template and then also allowing the tangles to kind of grow over them. So I think it's going to be
Tangles are taking over.
Yeah. So as we usually say, you can watch the instructional part through first if you're unsure of kind of where you're going with it. Or you can wing it, and that's always exciting too. So we'll see what happens.
Molly, what pen are you using?
Oh, that's a very good question, Miss Martha. I'm going to use the 05. That seems to be like sort of the base model. And then maybe adding finer details with the 01, and then maybe some thicker things with the 12 so far. So 05 is nice, especially.
I really enjoy an 05.
I know. I just got a bunch of new ones, actually. So because the size of the border is already here, I'm going to use that as inspiration, which is like a great way to play around with Fife. So I'm going to put like a stretch of Fife right here to begin with. So simply I'm going to put dots. Hopefully you can see those. That kind of form kind of evenly spaced out, almost like a grid here.
Creating almost like a pegboard.
Yes, that's actually a
or a
great
little
analogy.
bit of connect the dots.
Right? And I'm trying to kind of eyeball them to be evenly spaced, but they don't have to be perfect. So that each foursome kind of creates a square. And I'm kind of like stretching it, maybe like, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 dots. I'm gonna go 8. Let's say we do 8. And then you can always add more or change it, but I'm playing around with it. And I've sort of picked this space because I like that this printemps here. It's kind of I'm gonna play with that in a minute and we'll see how that goes. That sort of was my inspiration. So this is how Fife starts. It's a lot like the Tangle Bales, if you're familiar with that one, where we're kind of making these seed shapes. And actually I was thinking sort of like what you did on frondus
very
earlier.
resonant of the frondus seed.
Which is always like kind of cool to sort of like have strokes kind of end up in different places on your tiles. So you kind of get this, I guess, a little bit of a style going or a theme.
A theme.
Yeah, right. Just remember to breathe, kind of take your time. That first time you draw that shape, you're really kind of figuring it out, and then you find your flow. Now I'm going to turn my template, and I'm going to look at this area, and I'm going to create seed shapes that go all the way down here. But just pay attention for a second. So when I start off, I'm going to do them on both sides.
So you're going over that gray line that's there.
Yeah.
Just a tiny bit.
Gonna kind of disappear, I think.
Yeah. But don't be afraid to borrow some space from that line.
Right? When I get over here, I'm thinking about playing with using this border. And this is something you can do or not do, but I'm going to now imagine like my seed is kind of going behind. So I'm only going to do 1/2 of that stroke. See how that goes. You can always add it in later, but I'm going to play around with that. We'll see. I like to give myself room to... Sometimes when I'm tangling, I will often just tangle half of a tangle and then go do another tangle and then come back and finish the other one. It's a fun little trick to play with layering. I'm going to turn my template again. And Martha, I'm going to put some seed shapes going diagonal here. But just watch me for a second because I'm gonna play around with, so a nice seed shape going through the center, but I'm going to do the next one going.
Oh, you're alternating.
Alternating. Subtle, but it kind of does make a difference. So just from point to point.
Already giving that familiar and wonderful feeling of the flower of life,
yes.
Which is where the name Fife comes from.
You're very right. So this is actually pretty as it is.
Yeah.
So you might decide to leave it like that, and that's fine. I'm going to do another layer, but this time I'm going to dig into my Hullabaugh drawing behind technique, and I'm going to draw another seed shape that goes in the other direction. But I'm going to pause and have it go behind like so.
I love how the different color variations come through. So pretty.
All right, so this is kind of cool already. We got like something interesting going on. Now my thought is I want it to like get in here. I like want to play around with that a little bit. So over here, I'm thinking of it going like underneath, Martha. So let's imagine like the dots are here. So this dot is here, and the dot is here. And this one you won't really see. And then this one you wouldn't see. And I'm going to put another layer up here.
Yeah, you can fill that whole string space.
Right here. Oh, that's a cool, yeah, I like that idea. Put that one to there. Put one right here. All right, so let's imagine that this kind of goes like this, and I'm just gonna stop. Same thing here. Playing around with drawing behind. And then I'm going to continue with all these vertical fife. And then I'll play around with adding the horizontal. And once you get sort of that first under structure, you could always add in the rest of that later too. Right now we're trying to play around with it, look like it's going to get eaten up by some other tangle. And then I think, Martha, I'm going to pretend like it goes behind that fife too.
That's a good deal.
Now I'm going to add my diagonals, and these three seem to be the most, I mean, I'm going to start with the center one because I know what's going on there. And then just like we did on the other one, I'm going to play around with every other, and if you'd rather just kind of be more random about it, that's totally fine too, as long as you get the crisscross. All right, so that's very cool. Yeah. I love that. And you might love it so much that you try doing a little more. And then once we kind of make the presence of this border here, we'll see this cool weaving effect. What I would love to play around with this previously drawn tangle and kind of morph that. And these are things you can do while you're tangling, is play around with building this composition. So I'm going to look at this printemps. I'm going to kind of finish off some of these strokes and just pretend like the border isn't there. So this one, I'm going to pretend like it goes all the way around.
Yeah, and you don't really need much, right? It's just just finishing those spirals, and now you are that much closer to connecting the tangles.
I love that. Maybe do that with a few of them here. As you notice, I switched pens because those were done with 2 different pens, but I don't know if it mattered that much. And I'm just kind of, I don't want to get too printemps-y with it. I'm just kind of like, just kind of finishing them off.
It's pretty printemps-y.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Looks good.
So I'm going to continue on these little seed shapes as if they go underneath this printemps, which is fun. This one's probably in here a little bit, so we'll... Should I add another one?
I mean,
I just one more.
I think that's dealer's choice. Whatever you like.
I just feel like one more month because I know my mom's going to come in and put this border in, so she's going to be like, you took up all my space. And I'm going to be like, sorry, I was just having fun. All right, so this one. Just kind of filling our seed shapes slowly. When you're playing with these tangles that kind of fall behind, it is a little tricky because you're just kind of trying to reference the pattern, but you won't see the whole pattern. I think that's pretty good, Martha.
I love it.
Put one kind of flailing here in the...
Star-like on the edge.
Yeah.
Pretty.
So this does add quite a bit of structure here, and I love that we're starting to play with the borders over and under, and then not only that, but adding to a previously drawn tangle. So we're playing around with some fun techniques here. So one thing that you can do with your fife is you can, obviously you can ink in all the places beneath. We're not going to do that right now, but you can always add in a little bit of rounding here and there if you want to kind of create that emphasis. That's always an option. And maybe you don't have to do it with all of them, but it is
kind of setting them in there.
Right? And I might even take my O1 to do that because it's got a little bit more control.
Just a little drip of ink. That's all you need.
It's not much, but it really, we've talked about this before. It's like these little opportunities to add love. And as you can see, when you're looking at like parts that you haven't done, it does actually make a difference. I think that looks pretty good, Martha, but I'm going to add one more detail to my fife before I shade, and I'm going to use a technique we call enthatching. Okay, and I'm going to revisit all of these beautiful seed shapes, and I'm going to add, I don't know, I know you and me, Martha, we often call these like sort of like eyelashes, but it's just a couple of like very wispy strokes.
Very quick and light on the pen pressure.
And I'm going to take Martha's suggestion and do all the ones that go in one direction because that's kind of easiest on my, the direction my template's in, and then I'll go back in and do another direction. Find your flow, kind of take your time. I love the detail this adds, so it just takes your tangle to kind of another level. And there, I'm just almost barely touching the paper with the pen, just like a nice, very gentle.
And these fife seeds are drawn quite big, so you have room for that. Those lines that kind of add like a shading without shading.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is actually really starting to take shape. I love it. With my fife, I'm going to play around two different shading details. I know this doesn't look like a good idea, but I'm going to put like a kind of a ball of, oh, there's another one I forgot. You're going to keep like it's a game to be like, which ones did I forget? Little ball of graphite. And what is going to happen is I'm going to go back with my tortillon and the ball will get...
Yeah, it's very tufted now.
Yep. Do a couple here. And show you how we can play with that. Just really like kind of inviting it into that enthatchedness.
So pretty.
Right?
You know, this technique of enthatching could even be done after shading. If you felt like your shading wasn't quite enough, you could go back in with a pen and add it later, say with another tangle that you wanted to enthatch.
That's a great point, Martha, and with any other tangle too.
Yeah, going back with your pen after graphite is very much okay.
And what I really want to do is leave these center parts unenthatched and unshaded because I want to get that like highlight, and I might touch it in a minute with my white charcoal. We'll see what happens. But the other bit of shading I want to do is just like a line here and here to emphasize our weaving.
That's a great technique to use anytime a tangle or an element of a tangle goes under something else. You can just shade those edges and it just further emphasizes that behind feature.
So I'm kind of just showing you this little area here so we can get the hang of it.
Really becomes so vibrant when you step back and you see these effects.
Play around with some of this layering here with the printemps. So that's kind of our shading detail. For highlights, I'm going to go back in and just kind of hit the center of that piece that's weaving. And this is going to show up more on the watercolor background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find another place on here to add just a little bit. I don't think I want as much as I have over here, but I'm thinking about adding just a tiny bit over here and see how that kind of plays around with the fife kind of trapping in and taking over a little bits of the border. So kind of look at your tile, see a good place we can do it, and I'm going to play around with this right here. All right, I added my second location over here, which is a lot of steps, but they're all kind of like finding that flow and playing around with first getting your structure down. And I find it very rewarding, actually. So I hope you do too. A couple of things I wanted to note. When I got to the second one, I realized I really did need this piece of paper to kind of protect my work when I was shading. So I'm reminding you to keep that on hand in case you too needed to put it somewhere to like kind of protect the stuff that already had been shaded and not to kind of smear it all around. So I wanted to thank you for fifing with me. This was really, really fun. And we're going to add another tangle here in just a minute. We are going to work with an oldie but goodie called Bunzo.
Oh,
and
fun.
What I think why I chose Bunzo here was Bunzo is like one of those tangles you can kind of like attach the things really easily. All right, so I'm going to start with my 05 again. I'm going to play around with this area right here, and then I'm going to see what happens. And Bunzo is a tangle that starts with these sort of like little like croissant shapes.
Oh.
Is that, you didn't think so? No?
Yeah, no. I mean, you start with a curved line, and I think you build some croissants, maybe.
Right. And then we continue to add these I guess they're sort of like half moon shapes, crescent moon shapes. And it's all about sort of building on the last one you put down, except we fill in every other, like a stripe.
Every other shape.
Yeah, every other shape. And they can get bigger or smaller. I like to fill in as I go. We gave you that 12 pen for filling in. So if you want to pick that up and play around with that, you can easily like put a bunch down. Like we could experiment with that a minute here and then fill in. And as you can see, I'm not like worried about them being exactly the same each time. And then you can also start building them off other sides.
It's fun because when you vary the size of this curved line, you inevitably change the direction that it's flowing in.
Right. So if you wanted to experiment with using the 12 as a filler, might go a little faster and just playing around. See how fat this pen is? It's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
But some people might be like, that's way too big, but it goes really fast. So there is bonuses to that. And just taking your time and kind of focusing on which ones are the next ones to fill in. This is a fun tangle when you're working on a piece like this because you can kind of just squeeze them into all kinds of shapes.
Yeah. In fact, as you said, we might put a few of these sections down and then wait. And then if we have some spaces left over towards the end, we'd go back with the Bunzo and put them in.
So I think I'm going to leave this now. And then I'm going to find another location to put a little Bunzo in. And then we'll shade them up. All right, so I have my little bit of Bunzo here, and once you start working with this tangle, you'll start to realize that it's something you can easily add to other places. So I also added it up here to this little section, and not a lot yet, but I anticipate this being a tangle that we will revisit because I think it really will fit into any spaces that don't get filled. So it would be an option for kind of last minute fillers. So for now, I'm just going to do 2, but I definitely see myself adding more of this tangle later. So with my graphite pencil, I'm just going to play around with adding little bits of graphite to the sort of the points of the white stripes.
All the little corners.
Yeah, sort of what you'd expect. Just playing around with emphasizing those little notches. And with any time when you're shading, you always want to make sure you don't shade the whole thing because you'll lose that highlight. So pay attention to the sparkle.
And really comes alive.
Yeah. And then remember, we want to have that, I'm okay right now, but you might want to have that piece of paper around so you can rest your hand on it while you're working if you need that. Martha, I'm going to add a little white chalk. Is that okay?
Let me think about that. Yes,
okay.
Yes, go for it.
And I think I'm going to play around with how it goes over the black a little bit. Just a little highlight here. And you don't really need to use the tortillon too much. I just usually soften a little bit.
This one always reminds me of Dr. Seuss.
Oh yeah, it's a little whimsical like that. I can see that. And I'm going to go ahead and do the other one. It's pretty fun, huh, Martha?
Yes.
This one up here, again, we're just going to add a little bit of shading. And even when you're shading, remind yourself to breathe, take your time, don't rush through the process. It's just an extension of the tangling process, so really take your time. And, there's other options for Bunzo. You can make a sparkle, which is like when you just kind of, instead of using the white chalk, you might just not ink in that little area, which is also fun. That's an option. I like the sort of mottled look it gives it. I forgot we did this Bunzo behind there. I think that Bunzo I'm going to kind of, it's almost just a suggestion of Bunzo, but it's going to get pushed back.
Yeah, but you don't want to ignore it.
No, I don't want to ignore it. You're right. And this is the type of thing that could be, these little details we'll readdress later because... All right, Miss Martha, I think we did a good job today. So we did our fife, we've added our Bunzo, we're establishing space on the overall composition. So I'm pretty psyched.
Yeah, it's really coming along.
Thanks for joining me.
Yes, and you guys get to work on all this and we'll see you in a few days.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.